Before I get to the actual content here, I'd just like to say that this is more of like a talky thing. It's less a video and more a ramble. The video portion is just going to be some random photos of some BattleTech games I've played in the last couple of months. So you can just listen to this if you're interested in the subject. You don't have to watch what's happening, unless you just want to see some BattleTech stuff, I guess. Before I started BattleTech this year, I had a 15-year break from the miniature wargaming hobby. Before that break, I exclusively played Games Workshop games. I do hope you'll forgive me for that. I was a kid and I was a teen. I just didn't know any better. I didn't know there were other systems and other publishers out there, but I just never tried those other games. But I did go through most of Games Workshop's games. I think the first game I ever played by them was Blood Bowl, then Gorka Morka, then Fantasy Battle 40K, and I also played a lot of Mordheim, even tried Inquisitor. But really it was those big Games Workshop I go, you go kinds of games that I played a lot of. Also a hefty dose of Gorka Morka and Mordheim, which I do think are fantastic, fantastic games in their own rights. That's my background. Since then, I've played a lot of games. A lot of video games, card games, board games, even a little bit of tabletop RPGs. What I really like to think about is what makes a game's gameplay interesting and good. So that's what this video is going to be about. Let's talk about what makes BattleTech an interesting and good game, gameplay-wise. A lot of people say you come for the mechs, you stay for the lore. That's not what this is going to be about. This is only going to be about what makes BattleTech a good gameplay system. I'm going to take 3 parts of the gameplay of BattleTech and explain why I think these are the things that actually make playing BattleTech fun and interesting. So, you've set everything up, you're ready to punch some mech faces in, shoot some missiles, blast some PPCs. But what's the first thing that happens? Well, you roll for initiative. I would say initiative, how BattleTech works when it comes to initiative, is one of the best and most key parts of how BattleTech works as a whole. I'd say this sort of initiative system is a lot more subtle than the old I go, you go kind of system found in games like Warhammer 40k, of course. It only gives the person who wins initiative a slight advantage over the enemy. It's just a little bit more information. If you lose initiative, you're going to have to be the one who makes the first move. Now you're the one who has to anticipate, what's my enemy going to do this turn? What's going to happen? How are they going to position themselves? What kinds of weapons are they looking to fire at my mechs? What are they going to do? And then you make the first move. If you win initiative, you get to react to what the other one is doing. You have more information to go on. It's not a huge advantage, but it is an advantage. I think it's wonderful. It just gives BattleTech this ebb and flow feel where anything can happen. Maybe it's the luck, or maybe it's just instinct, or whatever. But for some reason, you've won initiative and now you have the upper hand for a moment, for a second, for 5 seconds. As crucial as I find initiative to be for BattleTech and how it feels, of course I don't think it's the most fun or the most interesting part of the gameplay. Of course not. My pick for the second best part of BattleTech's gameplay is what I'd say would be the most fun part of BattleTech's gameplay, and that's the damage. How damage works in the game, how it's dealt, what kinds of effects it has, and most of all, how it feels. The way damage is done in BattleTech is more detailed than any miniature wargame I know. Maybe there's something else out there that I don't know about that's more detailed, but BattleTech is more detailed than like RPGs, many of them. It's not that you can just cripple a limb or something. You can cripple it, or you can blast it off completely, but there's also the different parts of it, like the hand actuators or the hip or the foot actuators or the life support of the mech warrior inside. Because it's so detailed, because so many small individual things can happen that all have a distinct effect on how the mechs move and work. It's so visual. You can imagine exactly what's happening. Maybe you're blasting a mech with a PPC and it tears through the armor and hits the ammo and the ammo explodes. You can imagine that huge, horrifying explosion happening there. Or maybe you're raining missiles on your enemy. You're raining missiles on them, 20 LRM missiles. They hit them on the legs, on the arms, on the torso. And maybe, just maybe, one of those missiles is a lucky one. And it hits directly into a chink in the armor and destroys the engine. It's immersive. You can imagine yourself on the battlefield, inside the mech, feeling those hits, seeing those hits, getting damage, getting criticals, causing destruction is so much fun that I personally find myself wanting my enemies to get criticals on me, because I want to see stuff explode. That's a lot of fun to me. As cool and as fun and as immersive as I find the damage to be in BattleTech, I also don't think it's the best part of its gameplay. In my opinion, what actually makes the gameplay of BattleTech the most interesting is movement and positioning. This is what BattleTech is actually about as a gameplay system. It's not about mechs destroying mechs. It's about those mechs trying to find a way to maneuver around the enemy mechs so that they're able to destroy them in the most effective way possible. This is what the game is about. It's about moving at the optimal speed to the optimal position in cover if possible, positioning yourself so that you're not exposed, but that the enemy is exposed to you, and that you're able to use your weapon system in the most optimal way to get the most damage out of your mech. If you think about who's going to be the best player of BattleTech in like purely a gameplay sense, it's going to be the guy who understands how their mech works. How fast are they going to be able to move in which kind of terrain, and where they're supposed to be when it comes to the range profiles of their weapons. And of course, understanding how the enemy mechs operate is very important as well. You want to be able to know how fast they are, what kinds of weapons they are, what are they going to want to do, where do they want to go and position themselves, so that you have the most information, so that you can position yourself in a way where you can counter different strategies and have the best possible sight lines to be able to do damage on your enemies. This is the most important and interesting part of BattleTech. Of course, all of these gameplay elements, initiative, damage, and movement and positioning, they all work together. You can't have one without the other. You have to have all of them to have BattleTech, to have this simulation of giant war machines trying to destroy each other and trying to maneuver around each other. You need all of them. But that's what I think are the best and most interesting and most fun parts of BattleTech's gameplay. So, do you agree? Do you disagree? What is the best part of BattleTech's gameplay? What's the best part of BattleTech? Is it the lore? Or is it the gameplay? Or is it something else? You tell me. If you made it this far, thanks for listening, and see you next time.